What's going on, everybody? Just another day in the life of Brian Wilson. I'm welcoming you guys into my kitchen, and we're gonna have some fun today. Yeah. So we're cooking an Alfredo. Yep. First thing we do before all things, make sure our hands are clean. So we wash our hands. Soap water, warm water, good. I think it's like 20 seconds. I don't really follow that rule, but as long as my hands are clean, that's all that really matters. We're gonna get right along. Alright, so what we're doing here is we are prepping our chicken. We're going to get that out of the way so it can absorb as much of the flavor from our seasonings as possible, as long as it can, before we put it on our skillet. So I am going to put a combination of seasonings. You don't have to follow my exact rules, but I use chili powder right here. Just a little bit of front and back chili powder. I make sure it's just a light layer. I don't need to overdo it because there's going to be a lot of flavor throughout the whole dish anyway. So I don't need to overdo the seasoning on the chicken. I got some onion powder right here. Next up, I put a little bit of garlic salt. Yep, front and back. Make sure it's nice and covered. Make sure it's layered, so you don't have to worry about spreading it with your hands or anything. You just flip it and just put it straight on. I think next I put on. I believe that's all I put on the chicken. It's onion powder, chili powder, and garlic salt. Alright, now what we're doing, we are filling our pot of water, so we can get that going. We want to get that boiling as fast as possible, so you want to start that early. Make sure you're not wasting time on getting your water boiling, because it takes a little bit of time to get that boiling. Make sure you can cook your noodles and not burn your chicken or your sauce. And we're cooking everything from scratch today, so you don't want to burn anything. Basically, you want everything to come out right on time and in a timely fashion. So you want to make sure your water's boiling. You want to make sure your skillets are hot. And you want to make sure your griddle is warm as well. Your food is seasoned and prepped. So that's what we're doing now. And to finish prepping the water, you add a little bit of virgin olive oil and salt. To keep it from sticking and to keep the temperature. That helps, cook your noodles, and to make sure you're not getting soggy noodles or bullshit. And you gotta fill it away and start over, and you don't want soggy noodles. So next we are greasing up our pan, our griddle, so we don't have to worry about our chicken sticking. And next we are going to prep our onions for our roux and the sauce. My knife skills are getting better. I'm not the greatest, but I've gotten a lot better since I started using a knife. Since I started working in the kitchen. A little background on me: I started working in the kitchen a little while ago. Probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Actually cooking, not just like busting or cleaning or anything, like dishwashing or anything. So I'm actually like cooking now, and yeah, I've gotten a lot better with my knife skills. So, yeah, you want to make sure your cuts are even and the same. So, but you don't want them to be too thick or too thin. You want to like about half a centimeter, and cut them down to about right before the white. You don't really need too much of the white. Make sure your pans are hot. Always check your pan. Make sure everything is hot before you start cooking. I think we got everything pretty much prepped before we start cooking. So we can throw our chicken on our grill. Get that thing sizzling, start that cook off, get to working. And while our water is still boiling, we can begin the process of starting our sauce. But first, you want to get your butter out. So I just got a little bit of seasoning. That was Lawry's seasoning salt. That's just a little bit. Look, that's a good brown on your chicken too. So if ever you don't know how long until you need to flip your chicken, just until you get like a nice golden brown, evenly across. Next up, I'm going to start on the roux. Sauce. So I add the butter, probably about half a stick of butter. That was probably about a third, so I probably put just a little bit more butter in my saute pan. Be careful, that butter will splash on you. Be careful, because butter gets really hot. You don't want to burn yourself. Next, I add my vegetables. I add my vegetables immediately, actually, once the butter starts to melt, only so that they can absorb, all the good flavor from the freshly melted butter instead of the hot and oily butter. So they can get that nice buttery taste. So I add my garlic, my minced garlic, and I'll add my chopped onions to the sauce, to the roux. Let that bubble up, let that get nice and oily. Let the butter, absorb into the vegetables. Let those cook down a little bit. Yep. And then I take my wooden spoon and mix it around to make sure that the onions and garlic aren't clumped up. Make sure that they're evenly separated and evenly spread around the pan. And then I add just a little bit of seasoning. So that's onion powder and garlic salt, just a little bit, just to flavor, just to boost it up just a little bit. And then I add salt and pepper as well. We'll let that get nice and hot, nice and bubbly. We don't want it to get too hot before we add or too bubbly before we add the whipping cream, because we don't want it to burn. So, but we do want it to get nice and hot. So I'm adding the whipping cream now, which is basically like the base for our sauce to make it really saucy. So you add probably about 8 ounces, just enough to fill or cover up the butter, so the butter will absorb into the sauce and the noodles and the cheese as well. So you just want enough. You don't want to overpower it because it's going to be too saucy. It's going to be too runny. Then you have to add too much ingredients, and then it'll be too much. So you want to turn your chicken. Flip your chicken. Make sure everything is cooking evenly. I add the Italian seasonings and parsley flakes to my sauce. I add that in later only because I don't want it to like lose its flavor, its fresh flavor. As much as absorbing into the sauce. I want it to stay a little bit more fresh than the other ingredients. Flip your chicken. Always keep your sauce in motion as well, so it doesn't burn or stick to the bottom of your pan. Or clump up. Of course, you want to make sure your veggies, like your onions and your garlic, stay separated and stay in motion so they don't get clumped up and curdy and stuff. Because now that you got that milk in there, it's going to get thicker as it cooks, as the fats cook down and it absorbs into the butter. It's going to start to get thicker, so you don't want to start clumping on. So always keep it in motion. Keep your spoon on hand. Yep, always keep that pot moving. So while everything is still cooking, I get to prepping my sides. So today I'm doing asparagus, just fried asparagus, pan-seared asparagus, and that's pretty much what the side is going to be. So right now I'm just going to cut those to size, keep my saucepan in motion so that things don't get burned or clumped up. So always keep your head on the swivel whenever you're cooking, so you can keep your food at good temp. Yep, checking your water, starting to bubble up now, so we're moving at a good pace. You can see the drip from the saucepan and how thick it's getting, because it's starting to drip a little bit slower as it goes down the pan. So you know that you're thickening up. You're starting to thicken up the sauce. So now is a good time to check your chicken. Check the inside of your chicken. So basically I'm going to cut a nice hole, or a nice slit down the middle of the fattest part. Check the inside just to make sure it's fully cooked throughout. Give it a few more seconds, probably about a minute or so extra, just so it can get that full cook. Don't want to cook it too long now that I have a cut in the middle, because it'll dry out the center. And you don't want dry chicken, but you do want fully cooked chicken. Nobody wants uncooked chicken. So now that the water is at a good boiling point, we can add our noodles. I use the fettuccine, I think it's cremante pasta. They come in good portions, so you can just add them as you go. But yeah, that's a fettuccine noodle. So I add the whole noodle in so it can, you can get the full long noodles, so you can not with the noodles. I never snap the noodles so they'll just fall down into the water and soften up as they. So now that I got my noodles going, I start to add the cheese, Parmesan cheese, to the sauce, which will give it that cheesy. It'll thicken it up more because you're adding cheese now, and it's cheese melts to a thicker sauce, and it'll give it that cheesy flavor feel. You'll start to see it actually start to clump up more because of the cheese starting to absorb the milk. you want to keep that in motion as well, so it doesn't burn or get too clumpy. Add a little bit more seasonings to it. I like my Alfredo really cheesy. So our chicken is done. So I took that off because I want to burn it. So took that off the griddle, and I'm gonna add a little bit more Parmesan cheese to our sauce because I like my sauce really cheesy. So to each his own. If you want to add more cheese, you know, the more cheese the better for me at least. Look, our noodles are getting nice and soft, bubbling up, boiling up real good in that hot water right there. Sauce is getting real cheesy, keeping that in motion, making sure you're not burning anything. You can turn off that griddle now, taking that off the grill, putting that in our oven so it can cool down. Get that out the way. Unnecessary items, get it out the way so you don't burn yourself or hurt yourself. But now I brought my saute pan so I can start my asparagus. Now that our chicken is done, our noodles are reaching a finish point, and my sauce is just about finished as well. It's getting nice and thick over there, bubbling up pretty good. So you want to put a good amount of butter in your saute pan, so your asparagus doesn't burn as well. Keeping that sauce in motion, keep an eye on your sauce. You see our noodles, they're starting to separate in the water, so now they're at a really good point to where you can start to check them and start to make sure you don't overcook them. So always keep an eye on your noodles at this point. That's something that you want to make sure you get right, because you don't want to overcook them because they're going into hot sauce as well. So you can do them kind of like al dente, like just before done, and the sauce will finish the cooking process as well. So you don't have to cook them all the way through, but just right before finish, you want to get them out of that hot water. So we're reaching a good point for the noodles. Probably about a minute or so. Making sure our sauce isn't sticking. It's actually doing really well. Yep, sauce is there, butter's not burning in our saute pan, so we can add our asparagus to that. Get that steamed up, get that cooking up. I realized I didn't use enough butter the first time, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Now we got everything cooking. Everything's cooking really good. Got a good temp, a good speed. Nothing's overdone. Keep an eye on your sauce. Noodles cooking up really good. Check those. Yep, get nice and soft. You know when noodles are just before done, when they're like tender but not soft. They're not crunchy either. So you got them right. It's like a mid-well noodle. You want them to be kind of chewy. So now we're gonna strain the water out of there. Straight from the pot into the sauce. You don't have to worry about transferring the sauce over to the pot. Straight from the pot into the sauce. Let that do its thing. Seasoning to our asparagus. Just salt and pepper. Now we can mix any of this into our sauce and get everything stirred up. You see, I was having a little trouble with that spoon. Yeah, so I had to find a different way to get everything mixed in. So I found a way by putting that spoon down and actually using the forks. So if ever you have trouble getting sauce on your noodles, just use your forks. Toss it like a salad. It works the best way. And you know you can get everything mixed in. You can grab as much as you want with the forks and get it nice and saucy. Yep, nice and cheesy, nice and saucy and gooey. That's beautiful noodle. Beautiful Alfredo. Don't worry about anything extra, all the extra sauce. That's just going to be in the pot. Yeah, get it nice and saucy, nice and gooey. Make sure everything's not sticking together, but everything is covered. Vegetables are nice and spread apart. Greens, seasoned well. Keep an eye on the asparagus. I'm going to close the down to keep those moving as well. Everybody, we're gonna check out our final result. See how everything came together. Thanks for watching the breakdown. Hopefully you got some good notes, and I'm out.